Hello and welcome to another episode of That's Absurd. Please elaborate, the show where we attempt to do science and then sometimes accidentally stray into comedy. I am one of your two hosts, Julian Huguet.
I'm one of the other hosts. I was confused because you said two, but there's actually three of us.
There are three.
My name's Trace Dominguez. I'm a science communicator. Maybe you know who I am. I don't know. You've listened to this show before.
Two of the usual hosts, and today we're lucky enough to have a third. He is the co-founder and editorial lead for Adam Savage's Tested.com. Please welcome to the podcast, Norm Chan.
Hello, hello. I'm not a host. I'm not a co-host. Just a guest. Just a guest.
A friend.
Friend of the pod.
Yeah, friend of the pod.
If you get a mug that says co-host, right, that's it. We're talking about like mugs as accolades and how legitimate they are before we started recording. And I think if somebody came on with a mug that said co-host, they would establish co-host dominance. So until you get that, guest, we'll say, Norm Chan. Welcome, Norm. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
If you're a longtime listener, you know how this works. If you're a first-time listener, I'll go over what we normally do. We take absurd, silly, weird questions from listeners, from each other. Then we go off separately. We attempt to find some actual real answer using all of our very good Googling skills that we've acquired over the years. And then we share them with each other in an effort to educate and delight. So going first for this episode is our very own regular host, Trace Dominguez. Trace, what's your question? Who's it from?
So this week, my question comes from Sakari, and they ask, what if no Americas? And they sent us a voicemail.
Hello, I'm Sakari from Oulu, Finland. Some years ago, I saw a Twitter post. Someone had replaced the US map with ocean and said something along the lines, I just fixed the world. My response to that was, you just destroyed the Gulf Stream. My question is, what if both American continents were just ocean? They never existed. Columbus found India or whatever. How would that affect the rest of the world geographically?
You know what? It's nice to have a defender from Europe for the Americas.
Yeah.
So many people would agree with the assessment of like, ha, I fixed everything. Although I guess Sakari's concern is not like, this is the place where I and millions of other people live. It's more like, oh no, weather systems. Ocean currents.
Yeah. Turns out, Sakari's right on the button. I mean, that's a big deal. And just in case it was tough to understand, I'll reiterate, he elaborated in words as well. And he said, I remember seeing a Twitter post that had an image of the US being replaced by ocean. It said something along the lines of, I just fixed the world. And since he says he lives in Northern Europe, he said, great, you just destroyed the Gulf Stream. So what would happen if there were no American continents, and how much is dependent on their existence? Which I thought was pretty important. Any initial impressions? Do you think the American continents are a big deal?
As a resident, yes.
You just get one big ocean.
Yeah, I've been calling it in my answer here, the Super Pacific.
Oh.
Just because it's just one giant Pacific. There would be no need to make an Atlantic because there's no border between. Anyway.
I feel like the naming conventions, right? Because the Europeans would have been calling it the Atlantic already. And then if they sailed all the way around to Asia, and then the people over there had another name for that ocean, or if they already, I don't know where the name Pacific comes from, you'd probably have to merge them, right? It'd be like the Pedlantic, Pacific, something like that.
Yeah, something that, some kind of combination, a naming by committee.
Portmanteau.
So this is a huge question. This question is one of those where it's impossible to know like a real answer because we can't take away the tectonic plates that exist that created these continents. So I reached out to geoscientists. I reached out to the United States Geological Survey, the USGS, and their phone just rang for 25 minutes and no one answered.
Oh, that's ominous.
Yeah, I think we all know why.
Oh, no.
And then I also sent them an email and they did reply, but then they said, hey, reach out to this email. And it was about like USGS kids. And I'm like, I don't think this is for kiddos, but okay, sure. So there are a couple of ways we can take this. Option one is America never existed ever. Now, I emailed so many people that somebody did eventually get back to me from Stanford, and she basically said, no. Because even if they weren't where they are now, they wouldn't be nowhere. They would be, again, because of tectonic activity, they would be somewhere.
Right.
Right? So even if we go back to Pangea, like they're part of this giant supercontinent that used to exist. The option would then continue with like, okay, you rewind 240 million years to the Permian era. You have this unintelligible mishmash of land that eventually forms into what we see now. And in order for the Americas to not have existed then, we'd have to go back even further than that. And at that point, you've just invented a new planet. You know, you've just gone full Aladdin with like a
whole new world.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Is that what the tee up you were
Yeah,
waiting
that's what
for?
I was hoping for.
I thought Norm and I were going to harmonize like a 2-part harmony.
It's way too early for that.
If I go,
Nice.
I'll go high, Norm, and you go low.
Oh,
and
God.
A whole new world.
You know what?
No, we'll auto-tune that. We'll auto-tune.
I'm proud that you even went there, Norm. Like, you just tried. So option 1, no. We can't just be like, there was never an Americas. So I invented option 2. Magically, at some point in our history, a giant celestial with a cold stone paddle scraped America off of the cold sea floor to mix it with some chocolate ribbons and gummy bears or something. The mini M&Ms, not the mega ones, throwback to an old episode because of math. And then we just kind of went on from there. So the question then I had for myself was, when would be the best time to do that to actually be able to answer this question with any semblance of logic? Any guesses?
You're saying that the landmass was there all the way down to the plates.
Yeah.
And then all that mass removed
Yeah.
at once.
Yeah.
Giant scoop. And then the oceans just settled.
Yeah, I think also this is magic. So what I'm saying is that I didn't want to do the calculations of like, okay, how big are these things? Let's change the rotation of the Earth. Let's worry about like the mass loss. Let's worry about the ocean height. And now we're all sitting on these giant plateaus. Or, you know, I didn't want to do any of that. So I'm basically just saying magically the Americas disappear.
Okay.
And my celestial cold stone paddle, I had ice cream this week. I don't know. That's what I thought of. So.
And you're asking for the best time for that to have occurred?
Yeah, when do you think, like, how many million years ago, 10, like, now? Would it be best if it happened now? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm thinking, like, the day before humans would have crossed the land bridge from Asia into North America.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be responsible for wiping out the Native Americans again.
Right.
Before the last mass extinction, right? Like, you know, if it's going to happen anyway, then let's just create some chaos.
Yeah. So, how I broke it down is I started about 100 million years ago and I worked my way forward. So if this had happened 100 million years ago, it's the Cretaceous era. There's no primates. Pangea is broken up enough that maybe you could scoop the Americas out of there. There is an Asian-Alaskan land bridge, but Alaska isn't connected to North America yet. So it's just kind of a chunk.
What? Really?
Yeah. So Europe is almost entirely underwater at that point. There is a Proto-Caribbean, and there's a sea through Western North America and Southwest Asia and North Africa, also known as Swana, are underwater. So that maybe not the best time. So then I went to 66 million years ago, to your point, Norm, where it was like, there's already a disaster. The Chicxulub asteroid had just hit and hit off the coast of Mexico. There's a pretty big mass extinction. And so if there were no Americas right before the asteroid hit, then it would have just hit in the middle of the ocean. Would have been a completely different, maybe there would be no mammals evolving at all.
Oh.
I mean, it still would have affected the planet pretty significantly, but it wouldn't have hit like a land mass in the sea.
Right, it wouldn't have kicked up all the dust that blotted out the sun and triggered an ice age
Right.
and killed off all the dinosaurs except for the avian ones.
Yeah, so I figured maybe we would move forward from there, like go after that 55 million years ago, early Eocene, which is very first primates. The map pretty much looks like we see it today, kinda. Swana is still underwater. There's a big sea stretching from Siberia. India is still its own island. If we scrape the Americas off about 55 million years ago, we do lose an ancient primate in what is now the southern United States. It's sort of like a tarsier. It's called a Teilhardina magoliana. Nailed it.
Yep.
So I think we're close, right? Like, yes, we're going to lose some life, but maybe we're not going to. Then I realized by reading through this, 34 million years ago, all of the North American primates died out. There was an Eocene epoch, and so why torture those primates? Instead, let's go 20 million years ago. This is, I think, the sweet spot. Early Miocene, it's great apes and chimps and humans all already exist. South America and Australia were still isolated. There is some exchange between Africa and Eurasia, some between the Americas and Eurasia. The climate is cooling off. The continents are pretty much where we see them now. Half of mammals known today are already present. And we even have advanced human-like apes, like very, 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 I don't know how many other varies you'd need, distant ancestors.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Not humans, but like early hominids, right?
They're apes, yeah, early hominids, exactly. If we cold stone the earth, the great scraping, what do you put in your ice cream when you guys?
Lots of gummy stuff.
Gummy stuff.
Frozen cherries.
Frozen cherries.
Yeah. Sounds delicious. Scraped earth.
You know what I miss? Love and Cup.
Oh.
What is it? You miss what?
Rice pudding.
Rice pudding. So the magical scraping happens, the great scraping. Somehow Americas, they're gone. The earth is also somehow magically not damaged. So kudos to the amazing ice cream sandwich artists and their magical galactic paddles. So the 20 million years pass, not another celestial ice cream event happens. I still don't know what would happen. I've been stalling this whole time. You guys.
Okay. just hoping the answer would come to you. It's massive in its implications, right?
Is.
Your problem is the Earth being a giant interconnected complex system doesn't make this easy for you to suss out one like clear-cut result.
Yeah. It's like holding up a paper, like a blank sheet of paper and being like, here's what would not be affected. It's like literally every thing on this planet would be affected if you removed, a huge percentage of the overall landmass. We may as well have Zeppelins.
Mm-hmm. Go backwards. What's the more interesting question to answer? Right? Is it the cultural societal changes, right? Logistical changes. So, let's hand wave all the tectonic plates aspect of it. But let's say we have civilization as we kind of know it today,
right.
Or maybe 500 years ago, right? Before travel between continents was more possible, right? Let's say it's an era of Columbus. Take away Americas. How does society change? How does civilization change?
And I looked into that because it's something I wanted to talk about, Norm, forever. So I love you. Thank you for bringing that up. The Columbian Exchange is what it's called. And it would have never happened because there's no Americas. So without the Americas, we lose some of the most popular foods on our planet today. They're all native to the Americas. Things like potatoes, sweet potatoes, corn or maize, cassava, known as manioc. On top of that, tomatoes, chili peppers, chocolate, like all of that is native to North, Central, or South America. So let's kind of go through each one. Columbus never comes here, right? There's no Columbus that got to go to the Americas. Let me actually back up a little bit. The super ocean, if you were trying to cross to go somewhere, would be very difficult. Right. So you've got these explorers and they just aren't going to make it.
Right. It'd be like 3 times the journey for them.
Yeah, exactly. In 1519, Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan took 270 people and 5 ships trying to circumnavigate the globe. And at this point, we already knew the Americas were there, right? It's 1519. Mm-hmm. How many men survived to the end of that trip? Any guesses?
Well, I definitely know they were down 1 by the end, and that
True.
one was Magellan.
Magellan himself, yes.
I know he didn't make it.
This, unlike in the films where the Magellan dies and like all of the other ones just like go, like they ended up getting home to where they had started, but only 18 of them made it.
Wow.
Out of how many to start?
270.
Across how many vessels?
Out of 5 ships.
5.
It took 3 years, and they stopped and resupplied all the time throughout their trip.
Yeah, so how many of them died, and how many of them were like, wow, this is a lovely beach. I'm just gonna stay here forever. What do I need back in Portugal?
I imagine there's
Tripe?
some like incentive to pay them when they get home as opposed to when they're on their ship. Like
Probably.
They might have some pay while they're there. I don't know. I'm making this up, but I would imagine they want to pay them when they are done with their travels. But anyway, that is an example of how long it took to do the things with the Americas there. So they set sail from Spain, or, from the south of Spain. They went to the south of Brazil in Rio de Janeiro, and then they went around the South America, up back through Pacific Islands, across through Indonesia, up and then, around Africa, and then back to Europe, and it took them 3 years. Pliny the Elder, love that guy, was documenting voyages of different ships around the Mediterranean. And I mention this because it gives us an average speed of some of these sailing ships. So from Ostia to a place in Africa, he wrote down, was 270 nautical miles. It took 2 days, so an average speed of about 6 knots. Other people also wrote about this, but I have many of them listed. 1,000 nautical mile trip from Puteoli to Alexandria, took 9 days, averaged about 4.6 knots. Philostratus wrote, Corinth to Puteoli is about 670, took 6.2 knots. Cynisus wrote, from Alexandria to Phycus, that's 4.3 knots, and so on and so on and so on. Columbus took 2 months and 9 days to get from Spain to the Bahamas. So it gives us these ideas of how long things would take. So a sailing ship with a good wind maybe gets 4 knots, maybe, with a good wind constantly. So from Casablanca in North Africa to the next closest island that wasn't scraped off the map, assuming you're not stopping in the Canary Islands off the coast of Western Europe, but Hawaii, I guess. You just go straight west. There's no Americas to resupply.
Not even the Caribbean?
Now they're gone. They got scraped.
They done been scraped.
There's nothing. It's just a big empty ocean from Spain to Hawaii of 16,000 kilometer, 10,000 mile sailing voyage.
How many failed expeditions in westward until they realize, hey, maybe we should just explore this continent a little bit?
Yeah, maybe we should just go around the edges.
Maybe the best path to India is, exactly.
Yeah.
How many there be monsters drawn on a thing? Definitely monsters.
Time to really invest in trains.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, trains would be great.
Yeah, train technology definitely advances much quicker in this imagined future Earth. And then presumably Zeppelins after that,
Of
right?
course, Zeppelins, definitely
the next
Zeppelins.
closest thing to a train, but in the air.
I did some math, and 4 knots is about 7.5 kilometers an hour, they said. So 90 days would be this trip without stopping, which is pretty unusual. The 2-month trip for Columbus was ridiculous. People were they were ready to mutiny within a couple of days of getting to the Bahamas the first time they crossed. They just had no idea if there was something there, and that was only 2 months. So now I add another month.
Also, probably didn't help that Columbus was famously a bit of a
Yeah, real not good. So in the modern day, the sailing around the world, also still a thing that people try and do. The longest record right now, 1,100 days without resupplying, which is a long time. But that was only set in 2007. It was in the middle hundreds even just a few decades ago. This is a pretty new stuff, getting to sail around the world easily. So the Columbian Exchange would never have happened. We wouldn't have had corn, which changed the agricultures of Europe, Asia, and Africa, increased population growth, famine resistance in China and Europe. It grows in multiple harvests a year, and though it is really hard on the soils that it can grow in aren't suitable for old world crops. So it expanded where you could farm, not just putting it on farms that existed. It's also drought resistant, which makes it good for places that get less rain. And corn is now today in our world, not the Zeppelin planet that we've invented, one of the most important crops on the continent of Africa for countries there that, again, drought resistant, can grow in soils that wouldn't have been suitable for other crops. So there are places that just wouldn't have populations that can grow populations because they can grow corn. Cassava is very similar, also huge on the continent of Africa. Potatoes, which are native to the Andes, are calorically dense. We've talked about this in a previous episode, and they're super important to basically everyone on the planet today. And 15th century Russia and Prussia especially, because they relied a lot on this as a staple food, pulling millions and millions and millions of people out of famine and hunger. In fact, the world population average increases 12%, the average population, after the potato is spread around the world from the discovery of the New World.
So grains become much more important.
Yes, the American plants enable the farmer to produce food from soils that prior to 1492, according to historian Alfred Crosby, were rated as useless because of the sandiness, altitude, aridity, and other factors. So, made farms out of nothing. Also, things like capsicum peppers that we associate today with a lot of different cuisines, from paprika in Hungary to spicy kimchi in Korea and Szechuan and Hunan and Guizhou cuisines, which are all based in capsaicin peppers as a main ingredient. Tomatoes are from South America. what I used to say when I worked at the fort, don't say it, Julian, is Italian cuisine without tomatoes. Imagine that, because it existed. There was a whole Italy for a while, like cuisine-wise, before they even had tomatoes.
A lot of naked noodles.
Yeah.
Just bare spaghetti. Somebody going, we really ought to do something about this.
Hey, what do you put on your spaghetti? I don't know.
Nothing.
Oil.
Nothing's been invented
We
yet.
put
Butter.
oil.
A lot of butter.
A lot of butter and olives. Tomatoes bring vitamins A and C, which can get people to live longer, more nutritious lives. Interestingly, I read the first tomatoes in Italy probably weren't red. They were probably yellow, because they were called pan d'oro, or like golden apples. Kind of cool.
Oh.
The most famous, of course, things from America are things like chocolate and vanilla, which I didn't know vanilla was from eastern and southern Mexico.
That's why the Thanos scoop took our 2 continents. He wanted a Neapolitan mix.
Oh, yeah, you got the chocolate, the vanilla.
Let's not conflate our Celestials with our Titans here.
Yeah.
Excuse
exactly.
me.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Galactus. I was thinking of a future question that we'll get to later. Sorry about that. I was looking at the podcast episode list. Spoilers.
And then just without focusing too much on things like chocolate and vanilla, although they are really interesting, there's also peanuts, pumpkin, squash, pineapple, tobacco, which became a huge moneymaker for both the Americas and also other places where they could farm it, changes the face of economies for many nations. Coca, which is used to make cocaine, comes from the Western Andes in South America. And of course, rubber comes from rubber trees, which can stand the heat and cold and waterproof. Without rubber, we don't get rubberization, which means a lot of waterproofing doesn't exist in the early 20th centuries and late 19th centuries. Things are bad without all this stuff. Things are bad. And it's not all positive, of course. Without the Americas, we don't get some diseases. Famously, European, Asian, and African explorers brought diseases to the New World, right? Measles, smallpox, influenza, mumps, typhus, whooping cough, yellow fever, malaria. Awesome.
Yeah, sorry about that.
What did the Americas have? Syphilis.
Syphilis, I was going to say. STIs, baby.
We gave them the syphilis.
Oh, yeah.
Britannica, the Encyclopedia Britannica says that maybe we also gave them tuberculosis. But I'd have to read John Green's book about that. I haven't read John Green's book yet. So they said it may be contracted from Pacific seals and sea lions, which I thought was really interesting.
Wow. I would not have guessed that as a source
same.
of TB.
Now, I'm not a paleoclimatologist, but I wanted to, before I wrap up here, specifically mention the Gulf Stream, which Sakari mentioned in their answer. You scrape off the Americas, meteorology and ocean currents and wind patterns require supercomputers to really understand how they work and change over time when we're talking at scales like this. However, with the Americas there, the ocean has 5 gyres. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, thank you government funding, keeps tabs on them. The North and South Pacific, subtropical gyre. North and South Atlantic, subtropical gyre. The Indian Ocean, subtropical gyre. Basically just big swirls of current. You don't need to know all the details.
Right.
They move east and west at the equator. They're betwixt continents. And right now, without the Americas, there would probably be just a huge gyre off the coast of Africa that would be all up in the Pacific area. So currently, warm water gets caught in the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico. It kind of swirls around, warms up near the equator, and then flows out up into the northern Atlantic, keeping Europe warm. Western Europe, Iceland, and the Nordics are all warmer, even though they are at the latitude of northern Canada. But they have weather akin to where Norm lives, like San Francisco, which is half a continent south of them.
Right.
Which is nuts to me. That's a huge degree difference. San Francisco is at 37.7 degrees north. London is at 51 degrees north. It's closer to the North Pole than the equator. Without this warm water coming because the Americas exist, there is no warm Western Europe, which means Magellan probably never even lives there because we probably never breed with the Neanderthals that probably don't even exist there.
That's what I'm saying.
We're talking about, according to Geographical Magazine in the UK, without the Gulf Stream, also there's another way to describe it called the AMOC, the North Atlantic Subtropical Gyre is part of that.
Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation.
Exactly.
Yes, I was hoping you'd bring that up.
Yeah, so without this basically giant swirling mass of water that brings heat away from the equator and toward other things, the temperatures would plummet an average of 3.4 Celsius in the United Kingdom and an average of 10 to 15 Celsius across Europe. That's huge. That's a delta of 27 Fahrenheit, 15 Celsius. So on a 57 degree day, now you're below freezing in comparison. So that's nuts.
It's probably this warm water and warm temperatures that like allows Europe to become such a dominant force in world history, right?
Yes.
Like, and develop some, and just be like as habitable and hospitable to people as it is, which is so funny because when you get like white European descendants who were like, we were just the best and that's why we conquered everybody. It's like, no, you got lucky. It was a geographical accident.
Yep. Not only is it warmer than it should be at your latitude, you have access to a lot of water because of the way the geography is shaped. But on top of that, the Western Mediterranean is not quite at the equator, but it's like above the tropics. It should be warmer in that area as well, which means North Africa should also be warmer. But the way that the water kind of swoops out of that area means that like Southern Europe and North Africa also have a more temperate climate than they would otherwise. Basically, we'd have more extremes. Things would be hotter at the equator and colder in what is now Europe without an Americas to kind of rebuff the water and swoosh it back to the other side of the Atlantic like a giant bathtub. It's really amazing to think about how much would be different just from that. And again, not a paleoclimatologist. I couldn't find one to come and talk about it because they were just like, this would be bad. And I was like, I know, will you come talk about it?
But
and
how?
They were like,
Specifics.
I don't know how. It would be bad. And I was like, okay.
What do you think would be the most optimal place to live? We're talking still Egypt, Mediterranean?
I feel like if the Mediterranean is there, you'd probably want to live further away from the equator a little bit and closer to fresh water. So you're going to need to live near mountains where there's still going to be snowfalls. Probably going to find people, I would imagine still in places like Italy and Greece, it's just going to be colder, right? Because it's so much further north. But I don't know. It's such a black box.
I think major river systems, right? Tigris and Euphrates, definitely, right? But yeah, those like European civilizations that start building up probably don't get growing as fast. So yeah, ancient Egypt, these sorts of places.
Places where in the ancient world, even, you know, now we still talk about the ancient world that would be kind of moderated from these big changes. India would still be moving toward Asia. So like a lot of what we would see in the Eurasian, African areas and Australia would all still exist. It just would have very different weather patterns. I didn't really look into how not having in Americas would change like Japan's climate, Korea's climate, Eastern China's climate, Australia, and like the Indo-Pacific, because the Pacific is so much bigger. But I would imagine that the Atlantic Ocean would also, since it doesn't exist, all of that would just be colder across the board because the Pacific would just not have a barrier to its very cold water. But that would mean then the Pacific might be a little warmer too. I mean, we're talking a matter of degrees, but like maybe.
Yeah, like you said, supercomputers. We don't get a lot of access to those here on this podcast. So
that's absurd. Please, supercomputer. That's our
please let us. Can we run something on your computer just real quick for the show?
I think I'm out of time. Like, there's just too much to tackle. But we didn't talk about what animals wouldn't exist. There's no beavers, which means another huge economic boon to Europeans and the fashion trade that happened in the last 200 years. I mean, there's not a lot of animals that are native to the Americas that change to the rest of the world. It's mostly the reverse. There are surprisingly and amazingly useful animals of African, Asian, and European kind of descent, if you will, that moved here and changed our continents. They wouldn't have llamas from South America.
That's important. Those are cute.
Alpacas. I think you're thinking alpacas. Llamas aren't that cute. Alpacas, super
Yeah,
cute.
my wife loves alpacas. We wouldn't get the Emperor's New Groove.
We wouldn't, as a concept.
That affects me personally.
Yeah.
Oh, and I wouldn't exist either, I guess, but...
I also looked up inventions without native peoples from the Americas that wouldn't exist. Rubber, I already mentioned, but suspension bridges. The first suspension bridge was woven out of grass, put into cables, and spanned mountain gorges in the Incan Empire, which is pretty cool.
That is cool.
Baby bottles were invented by the Iroquois in the Great Lakes region. It was a greased bear gut with a bird's quill for a nipple, and it allowed people to like feed babies without having to have them on there. Other ancient like groups around the world had also come up with this invention. So this is a little bit of but syringes were also used by the Iroquois and the Seneca and then South American tribes to inject medicine.
Cool.
Oral contraceptives. The Shoshone and Navajo used stone seed to reduce fertility. Canoes, kayaks, moccasins, bunk beds. The agricultural practice of three sisters planting, which is still used on farms today, was invented by American natives and, a bunch of other stuff. Just really neat. So like I said, what if no Americas? Probably no Europe.
Take that, internet meme. You bunch of smartasses.
No economic power from exploiting Americans like the natives. Lesser populated West Africa, probably because of a more extreme hot climate there. More difficult life for everyone, everywhere on the planet. A lot fewer people, a lot less tasty foods, and smaller populations worldwide without the staple crop.
You're welcome, everybody.
So, yeah, sometimes America sucks. Sometimes everybody does. But we're all sharing the planet together, and we're all better off together.
Are we a net benefit? I don't know. That's debatable, but
Depends on the year.
yeah, depends on how we're feeling, kind of, as a dual continent.
Wow, that was a really hard question to answer. Maybe one of my hardest I've ever had to. It took a long time.
Well, nice job.
Let's take a break, and I'll have a glass of water, and we'll come back with Norm's question.
I'm gonna have some corn that I'm grateful for.
Julian, give me your best dinosaur roar.
Oh God, an asteroid! It's horrible!
Wow, that was not where I expected that to go. We're popping in before the show to tell you about I Know Dino. It's a dinosaur podcast.
You know, we think of those dinosaurs being this thing that's been dead for tens of millions of years. Even so, studying dinosaurs can still teach us stuff that is relevant to the world today.
Yeah, like climate models to help us understand global warming.
Migration patterns of dinosaur lineages, they tell us about Earth's changing continents.
We can also study dinosaur diets, what plants lived then, and maybe what animals and how they interact.
And, this is super cool, many dinosaur injuries, paleopathologies, they're the first known occurrences of diseases.
And they talk about all this kind of stuff on I Know Dino. It comes out every week with new dinosaur stories that you're not going to hear anywhere else. Like, I hadn't heard of a lot of these, which is pretty cool.
You can find I Know Dino on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts are. And if you found us, you can probably find them. Go check them out.
Okay, we're back from break. Thanks if you went and ate some corn and just appreciated it. Just loved the vanilla flavor that you got from that orchid that comes from the America. Anyway.
Hug the baby bottle.
Yeah, the baby bottle.
I wonder, with this is a future question, like the most American food, but only using foods from the Americas. Could be fun. Anyway. Was the most American food you could make. Not to see that in question askers' minds.
It's popcorn.
But popcorn, the
Right.
Popcornopolis popcorn that's got drizzled chocolate.
Vanilla, right?
Yeah.
And vanilla. Yeah. I'm thinking as many American ingredients as possible. Continental America.
It's also hot.
Well, how would they have made butter? I guess they would have to use llama butter.
Llama butter.
Alpaca butter. Human butter.
Probably doable, but ethically dubious.
That was quite the pause.
We all thought about it for a second. We were like, no. Well,
We were the kombucha lady for just a
kombucha
second.
girl faces. Yeah. No. Well.
The pitfalls of being a visual thinker.
All right. Well, now that we've covered that, Norm, what is your question for this episode?
Morgan from Metro Detroit sent a question in and asked, what would the real consequences be of a Thanos snap? How screwed is society?
Hey guys, this is Morgan from the Metro Detroit area, and my question is, what are the true consequences of a Thanos snap? I love Marvel movies, but Marvel kind of glosses over the immediate aftermath of half the population of Earth suddenly disappearing at once. Like, planes fall out of the sky, wouldn't there be the most car crashes to ever happen at once? I'm very curious about the level of destruction we would be dealing with here. For logistics' sake, let's assume that the snap isn't random, and that is an even 50% across all demographics and occupations. So, for example, 50% of pilots disappear, 50% of doctors, 50% of power plant workers. How screwed is society? I was inspired to ask this question because I was watching a Rapture movie, and there was a lot of car crashes and stuff. And then I thought about, what if this was here? What if half the population was gone? And then, of course, that brings me to Marvel. Thanks again, guys. I'm a huge fan of everything you do, and I hope you have fun with this one.
Wow.
This
is a lot of fun.
The car crash one is really visceral. I just imagine being a passenger. Like, Trace and I just went on a little road trip like last week, and I just imagine sitting there and being like, oh, Trace, look, this stop has a window. Oh, my God!
Trace is gone!
Right? 50% of drivers and or passengers. Right? That's
yeah.
right.
But if you're the passenger and the driver just vanishes, like, oh, my gosh.
Autopilot.
Maybe this is stepping on your toes, Norm, but I've thought about this before where, like, if a pilot and co-pilot are both snapped away, all those passengers die, Thanos does not care. Thanos was like 50% of everything, and those passengers were in the alive 50% at the moment of the snap.
It's at the margins. Those are marginal details. Exactly.
It's bad.
Bad. I love this question. Anyone who's seen, the Avengers movies has thought about this, and anyone who's watched a post-apocalyptic film or read a post-apocalyptic story, there's been so many interpretations, and I think I love the defining of terms here of the even distribution of all occupations, because you assume like there's some amount of randomness, but I do want to define more terms, right? Because if we go into the Marvel canon, much like the question you had before, Trace, like there's so many variables that we can consider, right? This is magic essentially, right?
Marvel canon, geoscience, equally complex.
21st century society, and one singular moment, half the population. Now in the movies, it wasn't just half of humans. It was all life. Remember, all life in the universe.
All life.
Yes. Because you had the scene when they came back and the birds, came back, and Steve Rogers talks about seeing whales, right, 5 years later. So we got to factor that too, right? Society, including the ecological impacts of all mammals, insects, everything.
Microbes?
Yeah, I think we have to. We have to consider that, right? Like gut bacteria.
Yeah.
Oh,
imagine the diarrhea post-snap. I mean, it would just be...
I was going to say, if you just suddenly disappeared when we were driving, Trace, I'd myself, but I think I would either way.
Yeah.
Right.
You probably would.
All at once, yeah. And then the question specifically asks about the immediate impacts, which I think are also real fun to talk about. But let's talk about like 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. And one way to frame this is there any scenario in which society can recover, right? How do we stabilize? How do we get back into some semblance of normalcy? Because in the movies, they do 5-6 years later, things are kind of back to normal. You kind of have to be optimistic that way. But let's talk through it, right? Population, human population, around now, we're at 8 billion people.
Right.
So if we cut that immediately in half, then we're talking about 4 billion. When was the last time we were at 4 billion people?
Oh, boy. That's got to be like post-World War II.
Right.
Like sometime in the 50s.
I'm thinking like the early last century sometime.
The 70s. 1974 was the last time we were at 4 billion people, because massive population growth post-World War II. But we've really, since the 70s, the last 50 years, we've doubled our population. So just if you want to imagine density of people, and I'm not sure what the distributions are, but let's assume even split. In the 70s, we had similar infrastructure, in terms of how much of the world was populated, square footage wise, right? Like we had basically the same number of cities as we do now. So just imagine half the number of people, and it's not too difficult to imagine half the number of people out in the world, because we just got to think about 5 years ago when we weren't going out into the world and how empty the world felt like in 2020. So that's right. Again, in a normal society, that's kind of what we'd be going for. Immediate impact. So let's talk about like the plane crashes so half of pilots, planes would still be in the air because planes are pretty automated. If we're talking about an even distribution, planes, for the vast majority of like commercial flights, you're going to have 2 pilots. Now you're talking about your single, exactly, right?
Yeah.
And even a co-pilot, even someone can land a plane, can fly, keep the plane in the air with most commercial planes today. You're going to have a couple crashes for sure. Your single pilot planes, the chaos, right? It probably air traffic control is the bigger question.
Half of air traffic controllers?
In that moment.
That's bad.
Right. So if you're mid-flight, if you're going on a transatlantic flight, you have enough time to figure it out to get to an airport and maybe land. If you're coming into a landing, if you're 10 minutes away from a landing and you're talking about dozens of aircraft that need to be managed, that's where the chaos is going to happen.
Whoa.
Do you think if you're on a flight and half the flight gets Thanos snapped away and turns to dust because you're in a flight, like the air circulates, do you think you just have to spend the whole flight breathing in like half a plane full of people?
You're the literal dusting. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I'm saying like the actual people dust. You know, like when Peter Parker's like, I don't feel so good, and then he like all the ones we saw, they were like out in the open, so they just blew away. You know, but I'm thinking like if we're in this sealed tube,
you're gonna have some bleed air.
Oh, probably.
Coming in from the engines, you have the bleed air, and so there's gonna be new air. But like
my reading of the dusting was more a visual. Metaphor of just the disappearance of mass, of vaporization, not an actual turning into carbon.
Okay. That makes me go in a completely different direction, where if we're just completely getting rid of their mass and turning it to what could we turn it into scientifically, Trace?
I mean, carbon.
No. If we're getting rid of the mass,
energy
completely,
then. Yeah.
Yes,
we're just making a bunch of nuclear.
Half of all organic life on the planet to energy. You would have the equivalent of like billions of atomic bombs going off.
Wow.
Trillions. I don't even know how many. I don't even know.
Heat death of the earth immediately.
Just complete.
Yeah. Okay, so let's assume some planes crash, some planes land, cars, freeways, everyone stops, right? There's no scenario in which traffic continues. You're going to have people just exiting. You've seen it in the movies, right? People they did it in the Marvel movies, right? Everyone got out of their cars. People are trying to figure that out. But all the freeways would be congested, and you have half the number of drivers out there. So you're talking about recovering in that way. Transportation as an infrastructure, at least near cities, comes to a halt. Other systems, like most systems, I think, are pretty automated these days. If we're talking about the essential systems, right? Yeah. What do we need for a modern city to continue operations? Power, water, sewage, and communications.
A good bakery.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, supply chains are, the chains are broken. Chains are, local manufacturing becomes much more important. But on the immediate near term, to get to a operational city, you need to recover those basic services, those basic utilities.
Thank God I don't live in a world where one random tyrant can suddenly destroy global supply chains with the snap of their fingers.
Thank goodness.
The power of the pen.
Please continue.
I think with the big infrastructural utilities, you have redundancies. It would be if again, assuming an even split, it's not hard to imagine that those coming back online relatively quickly. Half of managers are gone, half of operators are gone, but that's not impossible to get communications and power and water online. My brain immediately went to, well, what about like power plants, like nuclear power plants, like the places where you need
constant maintenance. Coal power plants where you need people bringing in the coal, moving the coal around. Some of that's automated, some of it's physical.
What are those buildings and what are those systems that if you don't maintain them, disaster happens? Right. So there are 54 nuclear power plants in the U.S., but most of them can do multiple days without active supervision, and they have fail-safes. They do these tests regularly that if it overheats, they will shut down.
They'll turn themselves off, yeah.
But you do need maintenance so that you don't have contamination. You don't turn those into big zones of just, do not drink the water near the power plants. But I don't think we're going to have like meltdowns nationwide or globally.
Right. You think it's something like there's going to be one, there's going to be two, but there's not going to be 50. There's not going to be 500.
Right. You're not seeing mushroom clouds everywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Well, that's comforting, I guess.
In that time of chaos, though, the essential services become much more important. So half of doctors are gone, half of nurses, half of engineers and mechanics. When you're going to get an exponential need for those services, it's hard to imagine a scenario where you don't have a lot of starvation and a lot of people getting sick and care just doesn't happen in a way that we would normally expect, right? Communication, right? Does the internet work?
The most important question.
I mean, it does. Yeah, you really buried the lead.
Can I watch YouTube? Can I listen to podcasts? The servers, I think you're not going to get the internet as you know it.
Yeah.
Because servers need maintenance. Constantly, right? IT is such an important part of getting the modern infrastructure of the internet working. You're going to have to fall back initially on a lot of analog, right? A lot of emergency broadcast channels. Radio becomes a huge part. I'm thinking about the difference between the 70s and now. The world is so much more interconnected, and that's part of the reason society works is because how fast the bandwidth of communication, right? The speed and the bandwidth. And so you got a lot of prioritization of the emergency contact between cities. And even as, let's just talk about the US, you need to have a system of command, right? A way for the government to let the people know, to give them updated on information, plus how to run these cities, because the moment you lose that kind of system of governance, then we no longer become like a country.
Yeah.
Again, thank goodness I live in a country that does not have a checkered history of disjointed disaster responses.
Moving on.
Sorry, I think I might have got COVID there.
If you want to get depressing, there are a ton of orphans immediately, right?
True.
Single parent households, like half of those go away, right?
Oh.
Yeah, I know, right? And, you know, the idea of community changes. You're going to hit, I think, consolidation into cities, because I don't think you're going to get survival of small towns. You can look to, you know, shrinking populations in places like Japan, and there's a bare minimum number of people needed to have these towns operate. So you're going to get some consolidation, and that's where I think it's even more important that systems of government continue to work. Otherwise, it's just going to become these city-states again, where they're going to have their own rules that work. Maybe that's going to, in this near term, work best for those populations, for those geographics. But the idea of a United States might go away immediately. The idea of borders, national borders, might be meaningless, right?
Yeah. It'll be who's like the most powerful and the nearest, as opposed to like who politically owns whatever.
All those previously defined geographic borders, they kind of go away. There's no enforcement. There's no reason really for enforcement. And how one country deals with it in one part of the world versus how another country deals with it, maybe with stronger ideological concerns, like, will be very different. And that's where, again, that international communication, reestablishing that might not be a priority initially, but will become essential if we want to avoid that post-apocalypse scenario.
Yeah. Something like GPS, I guess, would still work for a little while, but it does take maintenance to keep those satellites functioning and like keep them up in the air, little course corrections, little updates to their computer, time clocks and stuff.
It feels like one of those things where the first 6 months becomes so critically important, because what's the incentive economically? Because economic systems are all
gone.
All done,
yeah,
right?
That's what I'm thinking.
Money goes away, right? The banks, digital banks, it's all go away. It's all about scarcity. It's all about, food becomes food production. Who can farm becomes the most valuable resource. So the incentives for even those skilled workers and essential service, IT technicians, to continue maintaining the infrastructure, there needs to be momentum there. There needs to be a promise that what we're all agreeing to is trying to reestablish a society as we once knew it. And if momentum swings the other way, where it's just more about survival because of desperation, because of scarcity, because of some spiraling chaos, then the systems fall apart even more so. And it's even harder to recover those high-tech systems and those complex systems that are needed to maintain global stability.
Wow. We did a video years ago on D News that was like, during disasters, people tend to work together more than you see in film. Like in film, it's way boring if people are like, oh no, a zombie apocalypse, we should all band together. It's much more cool if like everybody hates each other and starts like, pulling out their guns and shooting at each other rather than like banding together. But
that's initially. I think that would definitely happen initially, right? I think, and that's based on this hope and this societal norm that like this trust we have that if we help each other, we're all going to get through this together. But how fast does that devolve when resources become really scarce?
Yeah. The video did studies of natural disasters, things like Katrina and other places, earthquakes and things, to see what would happen. And most people ended up sharing whatever resources they had and not making gangs to fight each other, because that's just actually a poor use of resources, as it
Absolutely.
turns out.
And that's also under some trust that there is a next layer of protection, right? A fallback.
Like, we're just waiting to recover from this disaster, as opposed to like, nope, this is just it now. This is the normal now.
It's like this. Our systems are so fragile. But it turns out the ecological impacts are probably, they're going to be there, but nature, does life find a way in nature? And there have been some articles and some researchers asked about this. And it turns out it will destabilize in different ways because of how fast animals breed. Fast breeders, right? Mosquitoes come back real strong.
Oh, no!
A lot of rabbits come back, right? And there's going to be some destabilization in those biomes.
That's what I was thinking, right? When we talk about like microbiomes, where the generation time is like in the order of minutes, like you don't set them back very long at all. But for larger animals, I also was thinking like the Thanos snap is going to get rid of like half of plant life too, right? Presumably, if animals and microbes are included, then like plants would too.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering about like the types of ecological niches you're going to suddenly open up and kind of give an opportunity maybe to some other organisms that were getting outcompeted, and suddenly there's like more of a niche available for them. I don't know. It's unpredictable, I think. It's another one of those like giant interconnected complex system where if you change one variable massively, like who knows how much you're going to change it in the long term.
Right. Is there any merit to the Thanos' idea that if you cut the population in half, let's just say human population, that would save a planet from the devastations that current consumption and the carbon footprint of half a population? And I think it's less about the number of people and more about with half the people, just the way we engage in consumption changes. We are traveling much less, using less cars. Survival becomes priority, and maybe that's good for climate change.
Yeah,
maybe.
To your point about COVID, like a lot of animals took over spaces where they had been chased out by human populations, and that was just humans staying inside. Like if there are less of the humans generally, I'm sure nature is going to take over whole areas that it wouldn't have been able to before because of
Chernobyl is a great example of that, right? Yeah. Right? You look at how fast that gets reclaimed.
Although, when we talk about nuclear reactors, I did think of Chernobyl and how the design of Chernobyl is flawed such that if it wasn't tended to, it would probably melt down. Right. And there's still 3 active reactors at Chernobyl today.
Right.
So
with the containment over that.
Over the 4th one, yeah.
Yeah, it still has to be maintained. All of that stuff.
I don't think humans go extinct, right? There's so many of us where there's so much institutional knowledge of like the information of how to run a society, how to manufacture, how to farm. All of that is still present. Like we're not thrown back in the Stone Ages because we don't know how to survive. It's just a matter of like, what is our willingness to maintain a society with keeping the survival rate as high as possible? Because that's, back then people just died.
I actually never thought about the fact that, like, I think most average people are like, oh, well, we learn everything that's on the internet. But there's also books, a lot of them, a lot of people, you go to school, you learn in a physics textbook, you learn in an engineering textbook. So a lot of those, like, calculations and things that you would need to know to build the complex things to the tolerances that we currently have, we might lose some of the, like, institutional knowledge because it'll take us 20 years to get back there. But, like, we're not going to be back in the 1950s or even the 19-teens. We're going to be in like the now, but we can't quite build it yet. Like we're still building the machinery again to be able to build it to micro scales and nano scales again.
I could see there being like zombie apocalypse movie style, like a contrived fight where there's subsets of people that were like, we can't have that knowledge, it's forbidden, because like growing the population is what led to the Thanos snap, and so like there's infighting.
Would there be a Church of Thanos and stuff? Like people, for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, you don't need Church of Thanos. I mean, there are beliefs and religions that will interpret the phenomenon under their own lens. Right,
like the Rapture movie that Morgan watched, right? Like
in the HBO show and the book series, The Leftovers, they wonder what would happen if a significant portion of humanity disappeared. And I think they have that more optimistic look of like society would recover in some way. There'd be obviously a lot of psychological trauma, right? Oh God, therapy would be a big profession in that world.
Let's hope.
Nice. Yeah.
Let's hope.
Actually, I could see them like partnering with Thanos to in the way that our current tax system is being kept so like inscrutable thanks to companies that sell software that makes doing your taxes quote unquote more convenient, like therapists working with Thanos. Or like in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, how like the Earth was destroyed because a bunch of philosophers didn't want the answer to life, the universe, and everything to be discovered, so they like paid to have it destroyed anyway. Clearly, living in America today has infected my thinking, and I see conspiracies everywhere.
Yeah, we basically have one generation to survive after it, because after one generation, that new generation, their reality, they won't remember what it was before.
Yeah.
And so the only people who really care about trying to restore society to pre-snap conditions are the ones who remember it.
Yeah. Well, even if they restore it, like, okay, we invent radio again, invent is the wrong word, but like we start popularizing these things, maybe we never bring some things back to the way they are now, I actually think about your point about infrastructure. Those highways, the amount of effort it would take to clear a highway of thousands of cars for any length of distance to be able to travel them, you may as well either build a new highway or build a rail system. Because the rail systems probably all still work, because a lot of them are automated and require minimal human interaction to keep them going, and wouldn't have crashes on them immediately upon a snap. So like many rail systems, maybe not like the New York subway, which is extremely manual. They just released a New York Times piece about it. It was really interesting. But like places where it's been more automated, those rail systems might still work. So like, why go take a highway? Maybe we won't even use the highways anymore. We'll like focus on rail.
Yeah.
We'd try and snap-proof our future, basically. For all the natural disasters you have to account for, it's like, oh, and what if both pilot and co-pilot are in the 50% this time around?
Yeah, do we automate more? Ooh, is that a thing? Like we start to automate more because they're like, oh, what if Thanos comes back and snaps again? We need to make sure everything will run without human interaction.
Redundancies, way more. The apprentice system, finding these trades that become more valuable. I mean, people probably want to work more, right? We're spending with no internet, with no YouTube, with no Marvel movies to watch.
I'm so bored.
Got to get to farming. Everyone learns to farm. That's right.
The old Marvel movies still exist.
Oh, physical media becomes so much more valuable.
The DVDs that I have in the garage are going to be huge.
I'm just imagining like one person in your household is the one with all the accounts and passwords to everything, and they get snapped. And so HBO's like, sorry, you can't use this. You're like, Netflix is like, we don't recognize this account. No dice.
What is email anymore? Maybe we can kill email forever.
A lot of cryptocurrency gets blown up right away, right? All these people with crypto wallets, they get snapped.
Yeah, no more billionaires. Like literally no more billionaires.
Because all their money is in a computer.
Money's meaningless.
Money's meaningless, right? Who's a billionaire?
Okay, maybe I'm on board. Maybe I'm on board with this Thanos guy.
Wait a minute.
Wait. So you're telling me we use trains more. There are no billionaires. Everybody learns how to farm at home. There are a lot more bunny rabbits.
Are the Avengers the bad guys?
Are we the bad guys?
How I feel about this.
Norm, you're flipping the whole script on this for me.
I'm not saying Thanos was right, but...
I'm not... Listen, that's just a t-shirt. I'm not saying Thanos was right. ...
Wow. This is not where I thought it would go.
No, me neither. Look, I don't think we should wipe off, half of all life, but I do think reconsidering the system and how to improve it is probably a worthwhile endeavor before half of us get snapped away. how to make the Earth more sustainable and equitable for everybody on it.
Just create a second Earth. Have it on the other side of the sun. Put half the people on the other side.
Oh, there you go.
Takes exactly as much power as snapping away half of the people. Just double the resources.
Look, don't logic people who like to destroy things. He just wanted to destroy stuff. Made him feel better.
Don't step on my made-up story, my hand-wavy made-up story about magic stones and a big purple man.
Yeah. The purple man wants to snap half of us away.
Do not question the purple man.
That's what they say whenever I think about Grimace.
He's a really big fan of jazz.
I would love a Grimace.
Grimace with?
A Grimace Avengers with the Infinity Stones. Oh my gosh, the gauntlet. That'd be so funny.
Well, thank you, Norm, for answering this question in an unexpected way, because now I'm conflicted about whether I need to go watch this movie again. How do I feel about this? I don't even know anymore. All right, well, let's take another break and come back and answer our third and final question for this episode from Julian.
All right. Hope everyone had a good pee break. Check your family. Everyone's still around. Check your drivers. Check your co-pilots.
Yeah.
Internet's still working.
If you're on an airplane listening, run up to the door and knock real quick and just make sure that they're still there.
Wow. What if the pilots got snapped, but no one else on the plane did, and they didn't know? So they're just flying along, and then they're like,
everything's
we seem to be
fine.
flying for a while.
Yeah, right? They're like looking down, they're like, I'm pretty sure that's our destination city going by. Oh, no!
Some guy raw dogging the flight, watching the map the whole time is like, we're passing her! But anyway, Julian, what's your question?
My question this episode comes from Art, who steers us away from like giant earth-changing cataclysms and instead asks, which key opens the most doors? Art elaborates, when a door is locked, there's usually a key to open it. There are many locked doors in the world, and I believe I could use one of my keys to unlock more than just the door to my home. Surely, not all keys and locks are unique. Or are they? You ever thought about this? You ever just look at like a random door and your key in your pocket and go like, I should try it?
I mean, I don't, but should I?
I don't know.
There are security keys. There are keys. I mean, there are master keys for certain types of knobs.
There are, and there are skeleton keys, and I have information on these different things, which I don't think is quite what Art is asking about, but I will get to that. Okay. First, let's talk about how locks work, right? There are a lot of different ways of making a locking mechanism. One old-timey lock system that you're probably familiar with, even if you don't know it, is called a warded lock. You ever, like, just picture a stereotypical key, right? Like a Disney drawing of a key.
Like a little loop with a little stick on it?
Yeah.
And a little donk on the end?
2 prongs, maybe a big donk and a small one at most.
Yeah, maybe a small donk and a big donk, and maybe a little, like, the donk's got a little, like, tails or something,
Exactly.
It's in a dog's mouth. Got it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. You have exactly what I'm picturing, right? So that is a key that would work with a warded lock. These locks are very, very simple. There's basically just one moving part usually, and it's just like the lever inside the lock that when you turn the key around, one of the donks hits it and moves the lever and unlocks the door. Now, the donks are shaped that way because they have to make it past these little like grooves inside of the lock called wards, right? They're these things that stick out inside the lock, and if the donks are the wrong shape, they'll run into them. You won't be able to turn the key. You won't be able to unlock the door. As a matter of fact, let me see if I got his name right. Adam Savage from Tested.com made his own warded lock.
Huh.
Yeah. He found a very cool looking key on the internet, and Adam, being Adam, as I'm sure you know, Norm, was like, I'm going to make my own lock for this.
That was a perfect Adam impression.
Thank you.
It was uncanny.
Thank you. I've spent a lot of time watching Adam over my entire adult life. It kind of comes through unintentionally sometimes. So it's pretty simple, but of course, simplicity also means that it's more vulnerable to bad actors, lock picking. And this is where skeleton keys come in. You've probably heard the term before. If you're not familiar with what they look like, though, a skeleton key is basically the most simple version of one of those Disneyfied keys, right? It's made to, instead of fitting perfectly with the wards inside the lock, it's just made to avoid as many different ways you can arrange the wards as possible and hopefully be able to rotate and spin around and actually move that lever. And you might have a set of different skeleton keys. So if one doesn't work, it bumps into a ward, maybe a different one will work. So those can open a lot of type of locks. By the way, cool thing about warded locks is if you arrange the wards symmetrically, you can have a key that works from either side of the lock, right?
Oh.
So that's why you ever see like in old-timey movies, right, where people like look through a keyhole. I'm like, how would that even work? Well, it turns out with a warded lock, that's really simple.
There's a hole there. You just have a peephole into the room every time.
Mm-hmm.
Same key works both sides.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Exactly.
Cool. Yep.
And so because of that, there's a clear path right through the lock that you can look through. Now, warded locks, because of all these reasons, actual security and keeping things shut. And also, if you're trying to change and some old-timey baron, is trying to peek into your room and you don't want that, we've invented different ways of locking doors. Probably the most common type of lock now is a pin tumbler lock. They're on almost all residences, commercial buildings, right? If it's not like a smart electronic lock or something more complicated than that, it's probably a pin tumbler. And the way these work is you've got a actual spinning part of a lock called the plug, and it sits inside a larger part, and there's shafts that connect that larger part to the plug. And in the shafts, you have 2 pins each. And these pins are different lengths, and normally, if you don't have a key in the plug or if you stick the wrong key in the plug, these pins go across the gap between the plug and that larger part, the case, and it doesn't let the plug rotate. When you put the right key in, where all the little grooves of the key are the right height, the pins are pushed so that gap between each pin and each cylinder lines up with the gap between the plug and the case. Then you can actually turn the plug and unlock the door. And this is where, as Norm talked about, master keys can come in.
Yeah.
If instead of having 2 pins in the cylinders, you have 3 pins, then you have multiple key shapes that could work with the same lock, right? If they push the pins to different heights, so long as the heights line up and match where that gap is between the plug and the case, you can still turn it, you can still open it. So that's possibly one answer to Art's question, right? Okay, if there are a lot of certain locks that have one master that works for all of them, then that, you might say, opens the most doors. But that's not what Art's asking, right?
No.
Art wants to be able to just take a random key.
Art wants to be the key master from the Matrix.
Ha-ha.
He just takes the key and he opens it up. And everything
Keeper
opens.
of the keys.
What about there are like vehicles, right? Where like vehicles, that's a different type of key.
Yes,
right?
yes. And I do have
okay.
information on this.
Okay.
So I like where your head's at, and we will get to that.
Okay.
Because, okay. So let's talk about, though, how this works, right? Most of these pin tumbler locks have either 5 columns, 5 sets of pins, or 6 sets of pins. And because of machine tolerances and, keys get worn down over time, you don't have an infinite range of pin lengths inside the cylinders, right? You probably have maybe 7, 8 different standard lengths of pins that you can have inside these locks. And so what that means is if there's 8 options per pin, let's say, and you have 5 pins, you only have a finite combination of key shapes, right? That's 8 to the 5th power.
Oh.
So what that means is absolutely one key might open another lock.
Yeah.
So now the question is, if we really want to drill down into it, is there a most common key that works on enough locks that has like a small enough combination of different key shapes that you actually have a decent chance of getting into a random lock if you have it? So I actually looked into this. And it turns out I found an interview from marketplace.com with Eric Glasson. He's the senior brand manager for a lock manufacturer called Kwikset.
Oh, yeah.
And he says that there are only a few different types of brands that make locks. You've got Kwikset, Slage, a few others, and each brand has a distinct, what's called a keyway. You ever look at all the little grooves on the side of your keys, like your house keys, right? And notice that like they only fit in certain types of locks.
Yeah. The profile.
Yes, exactly. More than just the teeth of the key, the actual sides of the keys that have those grooves. Those are called keyways. There's about 1,000 different mass-produced keyways in use, but really most buildings only use one or two of them.
It's why your key will fit into the hole, even if you can't turn it. It'll actually just slot in.
Exactly. So, the Schlage keyway, SC1, has about 72,000 different combinations. So that means if you have a Schlage SC1 key, there's a 1 in 72,000 chance that that key will open a random SC1 lock. So imagine that all of America's 144 million housing units used only SC1 keyways.
Oh, wow.
That would mean if you have an SC1 key, you have a key to 2,000 houses.
Right. That's a lot.
Yeah, it's like having the same birthday as someone in your kindergarten class.
Yeah.
It is. If there were, 72,000 days in a year. Yeah, basically. So what's the other major one? That's Kwikset's KW1 keyway. And that has fewer possible combinations, about 10,000. So that would mean, again, if every house and apartment in America used the KW1 keyway, you would have the key to 14,000 other homes, more than that. And that means everybody else also has the key to over 14,000 homes. So that's kind of the answer to Art's question. Whatever keyway has that sweet spot combination of installed in the most places and fewest possible permutations in how many different actual key shapes you can make, that's going to open the most doors for you. And I found a website, a supplier of, key blanks for people trying to start a locksmithing company. Of the top 10 keyways, the number one on that in the United States is Kwikset's KW1 keyway, which we've already established, according to Kwikset's own spokesperson, has just 10,000 combinations. So it's not going to open 14,000 doors in America because, there's the SC1's the other most common one. And like I said, there's more keyways than that. But yes, if you have a KW1 key, which I looked at my own keys and compared them, I have 2 of them.
What?
Yeah, you probably have a couple of them too. I could even share with you if you want to see an example of, what the key looks like.
Yeah, we'll put it on our Instagram. We'll have AP Sabrina. We'll do it.
Oh my God. So
yeah,
thinking about like how people or contractors choose the locks on houses, probably very, there's price elastic, right? They go for the cheapest one on Home Depot or Amazon.
Right.
So to make your house a little more secure, just choose the one that's people buy less of and buy the slightly more expensive one.
Wait, what about those developments where it's like 400 houses that all use the same stuff? So if you're going to be able to open a bunch of houses with your key, chances are if you live in a development with like 200 or 300 other houses in it, you might be able to open your neighbor's house. One of your neighbors might have the same key as you. Oh, gosh.
Norm brought up the birthday, sharing a birthday with someone in your class. And there's that mathematical phenomenon, right? Like the birthday paradox, where you don't have to have 730 people in a room, right, to guarantee that there's some birthday overlap. For there to be at least a 50% chance that 2 people in a group share a birthday, you only need a group of 23 people. So I took the equation for figuring that out and I plugged in all the variables for, Kwikset keys, like 10,000 different combinations, blah, blah, blah. It turns out for there to be a 50% chance that the same key opens 2 Kwikset locks, you only need 119 different locks. So yeah, at a big housing development that's like 400, assuming that, the locks are totally random, right? That like the installer didn't control for something like this and make sure that like, okay, they're all totally different. There's a 99.966% chance that 2 of those locks can be opened with the same key.
Statistical likelihood gets real high.
Yes. in pretty short order. So yeah, if you lived in a big housing development that used KW1 locks and you had the time and weren't afraid of like, you know, a neighbor coming out and beating the crap out of you, you just went door to door and tried it, you might find one that works. Actually, I found a website called hammerandhand.com where they talked about exactly this thing of like, what keyway should you put in a building that you're working on as a contractor. And they recommended actually going with something slightly pricier, like a Slage instead of a quick set, because it also feels better. It's like higher quality construction according to Hammer and Hand. And if you're interacting with something more often, as a rule of thumb, you want to splurge on that thing just because it feels nicer and it'll last longer.
Yeah.
And it's important when you are working on a house and you're like redoing one lock that it be the same keyway as the other locks in the house, so it's just all consistent. But they did talk about that and recommending like going with the pricier one, which also happens to be one that has about 7 times more combinations. So kind of an added security benefit. But Norm, you mentioned cars.
Yeah.
Same logic applies to cars, where there's a finite number of different combinations to the actual physical key that you can make. And this used to be a problem for old, cheap cars.
That's what I was going to just ask. Wouldn't it be like Model Ts or whatever? I mean, they didn't have keys, I don't think. But if
in the
they
60s or 70s, right? I imagine, without an electronics in the keys. And even today, even for like tractors.
Right, like how often is somebody going to come along with a random tractor key and like try it on yours? And
you never know, Julian. You never know. After the snap, there's way more tractor drivers out there.
This is my tractor now. It's true, though, that apparently older like import cars that were cheaper would splurge on the number of actual pins they'd put in the tumbler and stuff to save some money, and they were a bit easier for thieves to get into. And it's still an issue sometimes where a physical key will unlock a car of the same model. I found a news article about a Canadian woman at a music festival who thought a 2005 Toyota Echo that she was getting into was hers and didn't realize until it wouldn't start that it wasn't her car. And that she'd randomly taken one. But Norm, you mentioned that there are electronics in keys now, and you're absolutely right. So to avoid this issue of somebody being able to actually start the car if they get into it, because, you know, the physical key, let's say, still unlocks the door. Well, a lot of cars now have an immobilizer that will communicate with a chip inside the key. And if that chip doesn't have the correct authentication for the immobilizer, then the car won't start. A lot of cars are moving, though, to like just smart keys and keyless entry sort of thing, right? And that's more complicated. It's digital. It's, you know, encrypted keys that go back and forth between the car. And that can be totally unique to the key fob. Or slightly older technology, you know, when you lock your car with your little clicker button thing.
Boop, 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 boop.
Those, I thought this was really cool. They use rolling codes. And they change every time you press the button.
Oh.
Yeah.
So that's how when you're in a parking lot, you know, and you're just pressing the button over and over and over, you're not triggering every car of the same model, because every time your car and your key fob interact and the car goes, oh, okay, you have the correct code, I'll unlock or lock for you. Then they communicate and say, okay, for next time, this is the code. Okay, for next time, this is the code.
They update the password. Okay, next time.
Exactly.
Next time the password.
You got to modulate the phaser frequency before the Borg adapt.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Otherwise, it's going to depolarize your array. Everybody knows that.
This is all assuming that the system is designed well.
Oh.
I did find another more recent article about a Canadian person who accidentally unlocked another car, but it wasn't an old, like, Toyota. It was a Tesla.
Oh.
And they somehow unlocked it with their Tesla app,
Oh.
even though it wasn't their Tesla. And worse, they were able to start up the car and drive it for a bit before they realized that it wasn't their car.
Oh. They realized when they went to like Spotify or something, and they're like, I don't listen to this Enya stuff.
How did I know you would say Enya? I knew it was going to be Enya.
Oh, I don't know. Wow.
Maybe we have spent too much time in the car together after our road trip. We just blasted Enya, Norm, the entire time. The entire drive between New York and Massachusetts.
Nothing wrong with that.
Just rocking Enya. It was serene. It was very peaceful. Yeah. Okay. So the one other type of key that I thought of, though, was like a purely digital one that we use all the time, and that would be our passwords.
Ah.
NordVPN releases an annual list of the most common passwords that are found by, data leaks and on the dark web, things that get scraped up. They went through a 2.5 terabyte database of passwords. Any guesses as to what the most common password is?
Password.
Oh, no, you're close. That was the fifth most common one.
What is the documentary film Hackers? It's like God and Love, but those don't even work anymore because they're too short.
Is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
6, 7, 8.
Oh, you're both on the right track. The most common one with over
1, 1, 1, 1, 1. I gotta change my passwords.
With over 3 million instances in this database, the most common one was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Oh no!
So you're both really close, but I guess for extra security they used a 6-digit. All right, it had nearly twice as many as the next most common password. Any guesses for that one?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Go on.
8.
Go on.
9.
Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Oh no!
Had 1.6 million instances found.
Don't
which
do
was
that. Do
twice
better.
again as the next most common password, which was, do you want to guess?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 0.
No, just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Oh God, it's worse.
It's worse. Norm, 111111 was the seventh most common. That had about 460,000 entries. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Eighth most common at 395,000 entries. Password came in at 4 at almost 700,000 entries. QWERTY 1, 2, 3, QWERTY 1 were the next two most common. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Basically, the combinations an idiot would have on their luggage.
Man.
Right.
Were all the top answers. So,
People, do better.
if you're out there listening and your password is any variation of 1 through some other number in order, or just password, and statistically some of you out there listening have these as your passwords,
True.
please change them. Please.
Is there an equivalent to the most average for your pin tumbler design, right? In the biometric world.
Interesting.
For, let's say, a fingerprint or a face, right? Is there like a common face shape or the population where if you had a similar face, you could bypass the modern Face ID style unlock?
Oh boy, that is a great question. I didn't look into it because I was working under the assumption that these biometric things that depended on unique features of people would be the most secure, and some things that I found said that. So I didn't look into is one population so similar looking that everybody here could use the same lock? I don't know. I do wonder if there is an issue with identical twins and if these systems somehow get around that.
Also, familial relationships, of parents.
Yeah.
In the early days of facial recognition, when the models weren't as complex and they weren't training as much, right, on the face, we've read stories of kids using their own faces to unlock their parents' phones. So it's reaching that intersection between the complexity and reliability of the detection and how fast they want those to work, and how loose that password might be.
Yeah, this goes to a larger point in that security is often a trade-off between those two things, right? Of convenience versus security. And we see that all the time with the way encryption algorithms work. And even these keys, right? You could make the number of combinations for a house key much greater if you added one more pin, but then it's a more expensive lock to produce, right? And
your key's longer and your pocket's annoying because it's got a key in it all the time.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is that car keys are really just there to keep people from getting in and driving away mistakenly more than they are for security purposes in some ways. I mean, it's both, but it's a balance.
The odds that somebody with the same model car key opening your car are still very slim.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that it's so remarkable. There was a news story on it that one time it happened. This one time a poor Canadian lady was like, oh my gosh, I'm not in my own car. Well, I don't have a car seat. What? Right? It can happen.
I don't have a baby.
Yeah.
Whose baby is this?
Not since the Snap incident.
Oh, wow.
So many orphans.
Exactly, right? she's at a big event. There's a lot of cars there, and she just happens to unlock the one that her key works on. They are designed to keep the car secure enough. In that story about the woman in Toronto who accidentally got into the wrong car, they reached out to a Toyota spokesperson who said, look, our keys live up to the regulations. You know, like there are rules.
Great.
Classic answer, right?
Yeah.
But there are rules on like, what are the odds that a key will work on a random car of the same model? You know, it's got to meet that certain threshold. And beyond that, the manufacturer's like, well, we're not going to try harder than that. But the rule's there because somebody figured that's probably good enough. Like,
right.
In almost all circumstances, this is a non-issue. And then every now and then there's some bizarre fluke, and you just hope the person who gets into your car doesn't take the car seat and stuff. You know, it's more easy to break into these things instead of having a random key that happens to work. It'd be easier to use lock-picking tools that just let you in.
Yeah.
Same for like, having the right master key, you know, or the right ward key, you know, like a skeleton key, a lock-picking set, something like that. It's if you had nefarious intent, buying 10,000 KW1 keys and sitting there and trying each of them until it opens is not the way to go about it.
Not that one.
It's just making it inconvenient.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
That's what a lot of security is based on. A lot of encryption is like, okay, you could crack it if you threw enough computing power at it, but it might take you 40 years to do so.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think of like password security. Please change your passwords if it's one of those. As like you're just trying to outrun your friend who's trying to outrun the bear. Like you should have a stronger password than your friend. As sad as that is, because it's like, they're going to try everybody's password, and if yours takes 20 minutes to crack and your friend's takes 1 minute to crack, they're going to crack your friend's password. Like,
yeah. I don't think the scammers will stop at just your friend.
Oh, no. They will not stop at your friend. Also, social engineering works better anyway, but that's not what we're here to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. The weakness in these things a lot of times is more the human element, and the tendency of us to not want to remember complicated passwords and to just write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 instead is exactly that flaw. And you know, people who want to break into systems are aware of that, and so they'll often try, instead of just random stuff, they'll try these things that we tend to put as our passwords first. They'll do like a dictionary attack instead.
Yeah.
And then it'll still take much less time. The NordVPN site said that these top most commonly used passwords take less than a second to actually crack because they just basically take this list of the most common passwords and they're like, well, let's try it.
Yep. I did a video about this, and I talked to a couple of hacky type people who are like ethical hackers. And what I have come away with, and what I have told my mom recently when she has been switching to a password manager is, if you think that the password you have created is more creative than the first trillion passwords that somebody could think of, then you can use it. Otherwise, you should probably have a random one. Because like everything that people are like, oh, well, I'll just say password, but then put my zip code, or I say password and then I'll use an exclamation point. I'll say password and then the name of the website and then an exclamation point, and then I'll type my name but backwards. And it's like, no, all that's in less than the trillion tries that they can do in like a minute. So just don't do that. Just don't do that.
Of this list of most common passwords, by the way, the one that took the longest to crack is, any guesses? At 3 hours and 29,000 instances they found in this database.
But it was still common.
It was the 138th most common password.
Security.
That's a good one.
I mean, I don't want to have 3 hours of dead air while we try and guess it, so I'll just tell you. Jonathan. It was Jonathan.
That's the word.
Which takes 3 hours. The one before that, though, the 137th most common password that takes less than a second. Any guesses on that?
Jonathan without an H.
No. Naruto. Apparently, Naruto is a more common password, and it takes 180 times less time.
Wow.
No, sorry, several thousand times less time. I was thinking 3 minutes.
It tells you these are lazy kids who watch the Naruto. It's not the old folks watching Naruto.
1111111.
How is Naruto easier to crack than Jonathan? It makes no sense to me.
It's all just about length. I was thinking, if you want a really strong password, here's my recommendation. First, get a password manager. Make the password manager's password your favorite song. And just type the lyrics in. It'll be hundreds of characters long. No one will ever crack it.
Use a passkey. I mean, yeah.
Passkeys are even better.
Yeah.
But just be like, my loneliness is killing me. Hey now, I must confess. I still believe. That's a great password. It's huge, but you'll never forget it.
You'll never forget it. So anyway, Art, I hope that answers your question. If you're going digital, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you're going with cars, maybe an old one from the 70s or 80s for an import. And if you're talking about doors, at least in the United States, a key from the KW1 keyway is your best bet.
Wow. Very practical advice. How unusual for our podcasts.
I know. We don't normally do that.
Thank you, Norm, for being a guest on this episode of That's Absurd. Please elaborate. Tell people, if they don't already know, where they can find more Norm.
You can find our content on YouTube. The channel is just called Tested. And I'm on Instagram as well at Norm Chan and Blue Sky.
Nice. Love Blue Sky.
What's your password to your Blue Sky?
A passkey, 2-factor authentication.
Ah, dang it, there's no getting in. Hey, what kind of keyway does your house use? Anyway, no, we're not going to that. You just see me outside your door late at night.
I feel like Norm would have a smart lock with
magnets. Just magnets. Oh, yeah, smart lock. Yeah.
A bunch of authentication in there.
I believe it. He's got a custom-made Adam Savage lock that only one obscure key that you find in a rummage sale will unlock.
That was not a very secure lock you made.
You have to put a movie prop in front of it.
Yes, that's
and
right.
It will scan it. With that, you've listened to another episode of That's Absurd. Please elaborate. Thank you for listening to it. This show was created and written and produced by me, Trace Dominguez.
And me, Julian Huguet. And the man who has the key to our hearts, the editor of this episode and producer, Kyle Sisk.
And of course, Norm. He wrote his part.
Nice job, Norm. Additional editing for this episode provided by Sam Grant, our second key holder.
Our website and social media is about to be made awesome by our brand new associate producer, Sabrina, and our music is thanks to Epidemic Sound.
Thank you to listeners who submitted questions featured in this episode. That would be Art, Morgan, and Sakari. If you want to submit questions, we've made it as easy as possible for you to do so. You can submit questions in the form down in our show notes. You can email us at hello@that'sabsurdshow.com. You can even visit our website, that'sabsurdshow.com/ask. You can even call us on the phone at 302-TAPE-SHOW. That's 302-TAPESHO.
And that's what Morgan from Metro Detroit did, who... Norm answered his question. He left us a voicemail on our phone number. See, we listen to our voicemails.
We do these things that we promise you will do, and we couldn't do the show without you. The questions are what make the whole show actually function, and then you listening make it worthwhile. So please send those questions in to us. No matter how silly, we love them, we embrace them, we laugh about them, and they're essential to what we do.
Yeah, so thanks for submitting them. Thank you also to our absurd administrators, Adam, Les, Austin, Pinky, and Jonathan, with a very complicated password. Congratulations, Jonathan. Please don't use your name as a password.
Oh, I think I might know his password. There's a good chance.
And also thank you to our newest Patreon subscriber, Damien. Thanks, Damien, for joining the Patreon. Now you can vote on some of the questions that we're going to answer here on the podcast in the future. New poll going out soon. If you want to join our Patreon, go ahead and go to patreon.com/that'sabsurdshow, or you can find the link in the show notes or on our website. We pretty much put it everywhere.
If you're listening, also, we appreciate your reviews. They help people find us. We've gotten many. Is anybody being nicer to me yet, or am I still just a vestigial appendage?
No, they're being very nice to you. I think most people have started to mention you at the end of their review. That Julian guy sure is swell. Or like, he's pretty good too.
You can also leave us comments and stuff by watching our YouTube channel. You can go to youtube.com/DNewsPlus or click the link down in our show notes. We're going to change that at some point.
We're working on it. You could go to, that's the easy URL. You can go to the hard URL, youtube.com/@trace-elements if you want. Ooh.
Oh, you said it right. You never say it right.
I rewrote it to make it easier for me to read.
And finally, a very, very special thanks to those listening on Nebula. Nebula listeners get access to ad-free versions of episodes. They support us and other amazing independent creators, and you can support us and them by going to go.nebula.tv/that'sabsurdshow.
And remember, Norm, I don't know if you've listened to our show, but at the end of every episode, we have a catchphrase.
Famously.
It's the same every episode.
Every time.
It's not the same. It's never the same.
That catchphrase
is... Your password should be, Who can say where the road goes, where the day flows? Only time. Who can say if your love grows as your heart chose? Only time.
Thank you, Enya. My password's just I love Enya. Oh no, I shouldn't have said that.
I heart Enya.
I heard Enya with the less than sign and the 3.
Yeah, that's a special character and a number, obviously.
Yeah. And then an exclamation point at the end to make it more secure. Well, that's what I'll change it to now that I've said it on the podcast to everybody. So it'll be secure again.
Norm, do you have any catchphrases you want to add to the end of the podcast?
Yeah. Oh, I don't have a catchphrase. Oh my God. My dog has to go pee.
That's how I bond with my dog.
Thank you again for listening. We'll see you next week with another episode.